Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we are here today to discuss chapters 3 through 6 of The White Luck Warrior. I think I got that right this time. I always seem to mess it up every week. It is my first time reading this series, and I am here with Daniel and Katerina, as usual, every week. And Katerina, will you give us an introduction, please?
Hi, I'm Katerina. I'm reading The White Leg Warrior for the second time. Um, I don't think I'm slightly concerned about this episode because let's say half of my notes disappeared somehow, and then I fell asleep listening to the last chapter. So not off to a great start, but I'll do my best, and I apologize in advance.
We are prepared. Yeah,
Good,
we'll have fun.
good thing you've read this book once before, recently even. So, and I'm Daniel, and I've read the series a couple times now.
So you
So
say a couple of times. How many is a couple? Because I don't think we've ever gotten a number after all these
uh,
weeks.
I don't know. I feel like I was maybe 18 when I read the first book, and it feels like almost 20 years ago now. We're approaching 20 years, and I can't remember when this series finally got finished, but he didn't take a long time to write both series, I didn't think, actually. And then I read it once, maybe 3 times. But it's been spread out over a good 10, 12 years.
Nice. So I have to say, Katerina, you had mentioned that this was probably your least favorite of the books we've read. Maybe is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've probably been enjoying it more this this time. But it's still I wouldn't put it as my favorite.
Hmm. I thought we talked last week about the first few chapters being a little. I mean, things happened, but it seemed a little light. I think these last three, there was a lot in the last three. I thought a lot of revelations. Let me take that back. Maybe not a lot, but major revelations.
There was a couple of them for sure. So
I
where do
think
you
there's always a lot happening, but whether it's action or introspection is what separates it, if that makes sense. There's a little more action in this one, kind of. Some cities get sacked. Lots of people, I think, who have died in these few chapters.
Yeah.
Lots of elk.
We- Lots of elk. A lot of people. Though you wouldn't necessarily notice maybe. Like it all kind of happens in the background a little bit. So who do you want to start with? So we got a chapter for each of like the main groups or main characters.
I think the chapter 4 I think focused a lot on Sorwheel. Um, there wasn't a whole lot there. I mean, unless I missed. I mean, there was a little bit, but I think one of the notes I have down is they talk about the Shrink being driven and not just kind. They have something that they have a purpose. They're not just like a horde. So it sounds like something or someone is directing them or driving them forward, pushing them forward.
Right. So before the ordeal, just assume that they were driving the string in front of them, right? That
Mhm.
they were all like grouping together before the great ordeal, and now thanks to Sorwheel, they realize that actually the consult maybe is not as passive as they might have assumed initially. And it seems they've been gathering another army of strength that's been shadowing the great ordeal and it's kind of waiting for the right moment to attack them from behind.
Yeah, and this is true. And they talked about, what did they call it? hoarding, strength hoarding, meaning like one tribe gets pushed into another, until there's just no space left except for back the other direction. And then that's what the Aspect Emperor expected to happen the whole time, and he kind of thought the Scions weren't going to run into anything since they're basically his prisoners, what he's using to theoretically keep the rest of the Empire in line, though it doesn't work as we see in the later chapters. And so they decide to ride and tell the Aspect Emperor, right? Isn't that at the end what they decide to do? They need to tell Kellis.
Well, it's Sorwill's idea. Like, he's the one who makes or helps them realize that there are all these other strengths that they weren't aware previously of, and they should get back to the main unit and warn everybody.
How did this play into his contradicted mind now? He's got Kellis on the one side, who's kind of appearing to fight the right war, and then he's got Yatwer, who turned into his father's face and like repeated words that the Mandate schoolman said. So
right. But it also seems that in this moment, Yatwer is like, they seem to be on the same side. Like, Yatwer gives him the warning. Like, she helps him realize that that's what's been happening. That there's the other Strang army that's been following them, and basically, like, she warned. Like, it's because of her that he's able to warn his captain and the army. So I guess there's more than two sides to this conflict. Like, you have the Council, you have Yatwer, you have Kellis, and maybe some of their goals align, it seems.
So Yatwer might be both killing the Anasarimbers and trying to save the Anasarimbers, is what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if she just wanted to destroy, like, if she just wanted to have the Great Ordeal destroyed, then why would she warn them in the first place? Wouldn't it be easier just to have them attacked by the Strang from both the directions and get annihilated in the middle?
Maybe it's to add validity to Sorwill. He's already a good warrior and he's well respected. Now he's like a tactician as well.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Might be the case. Well, I don't know. I don't know anything. The more I read, the less I know.
No, well, everything can have multiple reasons. Maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, as you said, Sorwheel is no longer the Horse King, but he actually, it seems he's gained some respect from his fellow co-captives.
He's still the Horse King, but the connotation has changed. Now it's like the good Horse King. He's faster than everybody on the horse. 1 and 1 is 1. Isn't that what he says? 1 and 1 is 1.
Yeah, and there was one other interesting moment for me when they capture some of the strength, and then they kind of get together to torture them, and no one seems to really want to do it. And then Sorwheel steps in and cuts out an eye, I think, of one of the strang, and then he has this like little speech about how awful and soulless the strength are, and how they deserve to be tortured for the things that they do. What did you think of that? Like, because like, I understand what he says about the strength, but it still felt very cruel. And I don't necessarily see the point of it. Like if you know that the Streng are without souls, like they're not. I mean, they don't have conscience, I guess. Like what is it like? What's the point of torturing them if they're not even aware of like what they're doing or what the implications of their actions are?
I kind of, the way I took it is that he's using it as a way to gain respect or to demand authority, or kind of is it a way for him to kind of start to be a little bit more respected, or rally the troops kind of thing. I'm a little bit surprised cutting out an eye is the one thing that you were like, I don't know, that might be going too far.
Well, not just the eye, but I mean, like what? I guess I'm just not a fan of torture in general. And if you think that, I guess the Streng are kind of like animals, then you wouldn't. I mean, even if an animal attacks someone, like you wouldn't go and torture the animal. Like there's no, they don't understand it. Like they don't understand they did something wrong. What is the point of torturing them? Like you want to, if you want them to stop what they're doing and you kill them, okay, I guess that's fine, or at least that's one way of stopping them. But you don't need to torture them. It doesn't. There's no added value to it, I think.
I would agree. I don't think that they're animals, though. I wouldn't. They're worse than animals. They're definitely smarter because they wear like human teeth and human skin, which also makes them more deserving of torture, probably. And they might be more like tools or machines than even animals, right? So do you
Yeah.
think about how you're torturing the nail when you hit it with a hammer?
Well, I'm not gonna go torture it if I accidentally stab it into my hand or something, or in the wrong place in the wall.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I
And
think I'm sorry, Gina, go ahead.
there was one more like parallel later when the Nathaniel is explaining why I think it was Malawebai. He was explaining why he was like torturing the cities he was taking back control of, and he was trying to explain all the terrible things that Kellis did when he took Shime. So he's like, "Oh, this is fine," and that's kind of the same thing that Sorville's doing, but with Shrink, who do bad things.
They do pretty bad things.
I'm not disputing that. Like I think we all agree on that.
They waste animal meat. That's the worst thing I've seen them do so far. All of that good elk meat.
That's true. They are very wasteful. I just don't think like. Well, I guess what I'll probably go back to it, but what Fanile says about what like the way he justifies torturing and killing all those people is basically that he's trying to evoke the sense of fear then the whole can later use to sort of win people over to his side. I don't think that's a strategy that would work with the strength. Like I don't think that they would change their behavior just because you were you didn't treat them or you treated them badly on some other occasion. Or like I'm not sure that fear is a motivator for the strength. Fear of retribution. But I'm not an expert on strength psychology, so I take this with a grain of salt.
So what you're saying is you're pro Shrink, is what you're saying.
Strength rights.
Yeah.
Um, well, no. Well, let's change subject.
Yeah,
How
I
about
think
this? This
yeah,
might be a diversion or a question. So, the Raku that are still alive that Akamian talked about, he said that once the No God died, they all like became masterless, so they like gained free will and just left. And you're saying these rank are like somehow bound, right? They're like
yeah.
being guided.
I think it mentions them being driven. That they're seem like they're moving with some kind of purpose. They're not just aimlessly killing.
Right.
So whatever's guiding them, can Kellis somehow guide them? Is that possible? Can Kellis guide Shrank or Raku? Something can guide them. And he's like worried about their, like when they talk to each other, when he was talking to the Andaman Heights, their messages getting intercepted, right? Or he at least said that.
I haven't considered that. I guess I just assumed that if they were being driven, it was the console that was responsible. Which
It
would
probably
make
is.
yeah, it would make sense since they're the ones who made them. Well, yeah, I guess they're the creators of the strength. I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if there was like if there was like a direct mechanism of control, like if there was like some way for the console to communicate with the strength, or if this was more like, I don't know, maybe they just they put some elk somewhere and then that's how they managed to get the herds of strength to go in that direction, because they follow food, I guess, and other resources. But yeah, I haven't really considered the possibility that someone else could tap into the well, I guess that someone else could control the strength in the Estuary plains.
Maybe
But
they
it's
can't. Who knows?
yeah.
Right?
Now I'm gonna have to start thinking about that possibility. And
You got to think about all possibilities until the probability trend just narrows to the shortest path.
or I go insane because there are too many options.
A little in all of this.
Yeah, I can probably relate in that sense.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun talking about him.
I think that thing that most describes Sorrel's thoughts is like he describes how whenever the Shrank came and raided one of their cities, they would go there and there would be no babies. They would only find like arms of babies, only just like torn apart fragments and seed. Just not good. If I was Sorrel, I would pluck that guy's eye out too, probably.
I mean, I get it. Like, I get where they're coming from, but should they do it? Like, you know, I don't think revenge is. What's the point of revenge? I don't think you're getting anything out of it.
I think in war, I think it may be some kind of revenge, just personal to the mental thing that you see that they can be killed and that you can kill them this easily. And I don't want to see you dehumanize them, but you de-shrink them. You make them seem like they're not animals. They're less than animals. They're um, they're your enemy, and this is what you do to them.
Yeah, well, we call it war crimes in this world.
I don't know if there's a Geneva Convention in this universe. I don't know, yeah.
It's not a war crime if you're out hiking and a bobcat tries to kill you and you shoot it. That's not a war crime.
No, that's self-defense. But if
So
you then if you then go and cut off its tail while it's lying there wounded on the ground, I think that would be considered animal torture.
that's true.
Sure.
They've left civilization behind, so they're not civilized anymore.
I'm not defending them, okay?
Okay. Okay.
I'm just
Same
saying
stance.
let's be more civil with our enemies.
Speaking of being civil, I'm feeling a little bit. I feel a little bit bad about for Mathanet because he's kind of getting the. I don't know. He's going to get a raw deal with this whole thing. He put
Seems
in a
like
lot of
it.
work, and he's getting. There seems like everyone's turning on him.
Well, I guess there's still the question of why Kellis didn't choose him to lead the Empire in his absence. Is it because he doesn't trust him, or is it just for the sake of appearances? Would it look bad if the Shriel was also the sort of an emperor? I don't know.
Maybe he didn't pick Mathanet because he knew what would happen. That this would all happen. That they would all fall apart.
Well, it's already falling apart.
It's a power vacuum. You take all the able-bodied men and force them to leave, except for like the criminals who won't go, and then it doesn't end up good afterwards. Usually, in any of the books I read, but get left with a power vacuum.
Maybe he did it. Maybe Kellis didn't want him to be in charge because he wanted to spare him the failure of losing the Empire. Maybe he thought let's sacrifice Asmonet. She's a lesser loss compared to Mathanet, who is at least part Union.
He says that it's because the Shrai shouldn't be the leader. He's already the leader of the religion. So that's what Kellis said.
Yeah, but I mean, if Kellis said that he should be the leader exactly because he's the leader of the religion, then we would probably believe him.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe if the Dunyan are just like all conquering, and that's basically their whole purpose, maybe he thinks that the Dunyan in him would betray him. They master all circumstance. If he finds a way to become dominant, then maybe he would.
Yeah.
Maybe if the Shrai was in charge, he wouldn't listen to Essenet, and with Essenet in charge, at least she'll listen to him, or you think she would. So Kel cracks a wedge.
Very effectively.
Yeah, he's very good at manipulating Asmonet. I think we've established that. But I mean, like, I do agree with you, Steve, that Mathanet has been seemingly loyal to Kellis for the past 20 years. And for some reason, for whether they're justified or not, Esmonet has decided that he cannot be trusted, and that he's the biggest threat to her, or well, at least one of the threats. I guess she has other things to deal with as well. It might be unfair, towards Amathanet, but I guess it all depends on whether she's right and he's actually plotting against her, or whether she's just being paranoid and he's actually there just to help her.
I do love Colomus though, for all the wrong reasons.
He's an interesting little dude. Mamara loves him too, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, he begged her not to leave, right?
He made her leave. But
oh, yeah, hell, yeah, that's true.
He's pretty manipulative. And he still thinks of his mom as like a lesser human, an animal, he says. But he's obsessed with her.
I love the conversation that he and Enrilthas, I can't pronounce his name, his brother had, his crazy brother. That whole conversation was really interesting. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time we've been kind of led to believe that he is just insane, which he might be, but once, like, when he explains the reasons for why he behaves the way he does, it puts things into a different perspective. And it's just the way that he thinks about the world and the god and the rules. It's an interesting thought experiment.
I agree. Neurologist is a fun character. And he starts out the whole thing by like walking to the middle of the floor and just shitting, and says, "Come, brother, I want to discuss the shit between us."
Yeah,
it's hardcore.
Yeah, but it's still, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm kind of torn between, like, is he crazy, or is he somehow like, did he, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to express it. Like,
I wonder how much he's a representation of like the god. He says he is. He's just acting out of sheer impulse, stacking obscenity on obscenity because that's what the god would do.
Yeah, I guess it's also like one way that you could theoretically think that you can achieve free will if you act like in opposition to everything that in opposition to it, like the rules that the world tries to impose on you. But then if you're kind of acting in opposition to everything, then I don't know, like, are you actually free? Like, are you like, are you the master of your decisions if you're just acting against the rules that somebody else has already set up for you? I don't know. I think it's like one of, yeah.
Seems like a singular track, like always against, right? So you know where they're going.
So it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily as free way of living or as unconstrained way of living as maybe he would like to think. But it's like, it's one of the more philosophical elements in this book, in Relatus and his character.
in Relatus. Jeez.
Well, I mean, I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Oh no, I feel silly because I totally got the pronunciation wrong. So
that's just my guess at the pronunciation. But yeah, I think I usually say in Relatus or in Relatus.
When I'm having fun, I turn the I in the middle into a long E.
So what, in Relatus?
And he knows right away that Sammy is around. That his brother is still somehow lingering, and meanwhile uh, Calomus is being told, this is a mistake. We should leave. This is a bad idea the entire time. So it's that added to the tension and the anticipation of that whole conversation, because it seems peaceful. It seems like um, like a calm situation, but hearing his brother tell him like this was a bad idea, we should leave. It adds to the atmosphere.
Yeah, because I think, well, so far we as the reader are the only ones who know that Kelmomus is hearing this voice, whether it's Sammy or something else, and it's like it's kind of crazy that like it gives you a sense of like how powerful or like how gifted Enrelatus is, that he can like he can immediately tell that there is something wrong with Kelmomus, like while everyone else seems to think he's just this like little adorable baby. Like he immediately knows there's something wrong, and that he can tell that he's hearing this voice. Although I'm not sure that Enrelatus necessarily knows that it's Sammy, but he knows that there is someone speaking to Kelmomus.
And he just
Quite
needs
impressive.
to look down his throat, and he'll find out who it is. And at this point, to Kelmomus, it is Sammy or the secret voice, but to us, it's just a crazy voice, a crazy little kid's head, who is also like attached to his brother for years with eyesight somehow.
Yeah, they would stare at each other for to separate them. That was really. I loved all the information we got on all the different kids, and kind of who has more of the characteristics of Callus, and kind of the inner workings of them.
Yeah, and they do talk about Kelmomus, or I think Enrelatus is the one who says it, that Kelmomus is more or less like him, like Enrelatus.
More like Enrelatus than all the other sons, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe Enrelatus has a crazy voice too. He never says it.
Yeah, I mean it's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, it makes. I mean, just based on the behavior that we've seen from Kelmomus so far, I wouldn't be too surprised if in 10 or years or so he would be locked up in a room somewhere. But I don't know. They don't seem too similar so far.
Yeah, Kelmomus can hide it. I think the way it describes Enrelatus is like he has like all the emotions of his mom, but he has like no control over them, as well as the intellect of a Dunyan. So he'll just lash out on instinct or desire. That's why he always says the most hurtful thing. I forgot what he called Mimara, a wounded dog, a beaten puppy, or something.
Yeah, that's right. Kelmomus seems more like he has things more under control. Like he's much better at hiding it, at hiding what he thinks, and hiding what he feels, especially towards his mother. And
he can act how he's supposed to act, and Enrelatus has no filter. It's just pure craziness into the world. It appears from them having to wash shit off the walls twice a day.
yeah, that must be a terrible job. Just
And the guy who probably saved Kelmomus, maybe he was about to cross the line.
Yeah, but then Kelmomus left. Before Kelmomus left, he was able to give Enreladas a small file, which I'm not sure why he did it. Like, I don't think he has a reason to free Enreladas.
Maybe it's to let him off himself, so he has one less barrier between his mom and everyone else.
Yeah, maybe.
Just to see what happens.
Maybe, but I don't know. I think Kamoma is usually pretty. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say like he's calculating, but then sometimes he does also act purely like off of his emotions. So I don't know. But we know that Enreladas has the file, and he can. There's a chance that he might free himself sometime soon.
And I think it was also talked about how he's the only one that might be able to like look into Nathanette's eyes and see what Nathanette is thinking. So Mamara or Estinet might be about to try to use him against Nathanette, maybe.
Right. But I guess the question is, will Enreladas tell Esmenet the truth that he sees in Maithanet? Like, does he have any reason to tell her what she wants him to find out? That doesn't seem like Enreladas doesn't seem like the kind of person who follows orders from other people.
No. No.
The same would go for his discussion with Kel. Was he telling him that for reasons, just to get him to cross the line, or how much truth was in what Enreladas said? It's always hard to tell with these Dunyan.
Very unpredictable.
There was one other moment with Kilmois that I found interesting, and it's when he talks about how there is one person that he loves more than his mother, and that person is someone who lives in the eyes of the dying. And I think he calls that person, I think he calls them the worshipper or something like that. And like he's kind of saying like the only thing I enjoy more than being around my mother is killing people, like, or like looking into the eyes of people I've just killed, which I found interesting and creepy and disconcerting.
Yeah, that was the hardcore little part. So does he really see something there? He's Dunyan, they have a crazy intellect, and he thinks he sees someone. He says he's trapped in a room. And the room only is accessible through the brief instances before death.
I have no idea, but it was creepy, especially coming from a child. And if when I don't, how old is he? He's like 7, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I was in 8 maybe now, 7 or 8.
Yeah. And he's like, well, like thinking back to all the people I've already killed. Like he's an 8-year-old kid.
He's a Dunyan, not quite human. There was one hardcore thing that Enralitas said to him. He said, "Look at this heap of screams you call the world and tell me you would not add to them. Pile them to the sky." Piling screams to the sky. And I think Kalmoma says yes. It's when finally betrays that he's just as broken.
That see if I can find that quote really quick. But they talk about the god And what rules the god? Nothing, no one. So the god is unconstrained. So the god is like me.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of so the impression or like the difference I see between Inverladas and Camomas. It seems to me that Inverladas would kill someone because it's forbidden, whereas Camomas would do it because he enjoys it. That's the distinction I see between those two. Though I mean I can't say like Inverladas' motivations are necessarily crystal clear to me. But all the people that we've seen Camomas kill, I think, have been killed because he either wanted to or he did it so that he could be closer to his mom. But there is a part of him that
his hatred of the fat man seemed a little different, right? Like the mom was still winning the argument and won the argument, and he still just wants to kill the little fat man.
yeah, definitely there is a part of them that enjoys it, just the act of or the thought of killing somebody or like having that power over somebody.
Or seeing the whatever in their eyes. The only person he likes looking into their eyes more than his mom.
Yeah.
He needs to get someone just right on the verge of death that keep him alive. And he can just stare into their eyes forever. Maybe that's what his little no-witted brother was.
Maybe. I have no theories on that.
Personally.
Rest in peace.
There was
R.I.P.
one quote by Sorwell that was interesting. He was like reflecting on religion and what certain religions thought, and then he like said he didn't believe any of that, but he thought when he thought about the world beyond what his eyes could see, he saw souls in their innumerable thousands with only frayed threads to hold them, dangling over the gaping black of the outside. In the shadows moving beneath, the gods, ancient and capricious, reptilian with indifference, with designs so old and vast that there could be only madness in the small eyes of man. That's pretty crazy. It reminded me of the horror book we read, too.
Yeah.
The void just reaching down and grasping all the souls, black streams.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Negative space. Yeah.
Oh, I think you mentioned it.
The book's
Right.
intense. Yeah. There was one on 157 that I tabbed, but you can only believe so many lies before becoming one of them.
I think that was a comment, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I know a number of people who have told so many lies they're not able to discern the reality anymore. For sure.
Yeah, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I like the quote. You could not be wholly human and survive alongside, so you became something less and pretended you were more. It's hardcore.
Well, my quotes got deleted, so I don't have any.
Yeah.
I think there was one about family or about how people perceive you when you talk about your family and the relationship you have with them, and how when you talk about your family to other people, people we will kind of get a different idea of you and your family than the idea that you maybe want to get across. But I don't remember the page. So I'll see if I can find it. But that was a nice one as well.
I've heard a quote like, "There's the us that we know and the us that people know as us. They're completely separate."
Yeah, it was something along those lines. Yeah. But just one last thing about chapter 5. It's the very first like page or two. We get another brief moment with the white leg warrior. And he kind of talks about like how he sees the past and the present and the future like all at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and there's there's a section where he talks about the future, like what to us would be the future. And he talks about how he sees or he is like an assassin gagging on his own blood, armies in the street, and then he saw the holy Schreier turn oblivious and bare his throat. He saw the Endymion heights crashing upon itself. The Empress flutter about her final breath. He watched the Aspect Emperor dying in blood and expressionless belief. Is this true? Like, is this the future? Is this what's going to happen? Like,
Daniel's giving his best poker face.
I mean, we kind of talked about like whether the gods are able to determine people's fates. Well, at least it seems if the White Leg Warrior or Yatwer have a say, then things are not going to end well for Kellis and Esmenet and Nathanet. But I mean, is this like the definite version of the future, or are there like multiple versions? Does everything that Yatwer and Gilgal come true?
Or maybe Kellis is kind of right that they have blind spots, and that's where the no doubt is, in their blind spot. Maybe that's where Kellis is trying to be too. Maybe it's all revelation. The past when it's described is definitely like the true past, truer than any of the other words in these books, if that makes sense. Because it's like the actual history, whereas everything else has been like written and regurgitated.
Yeah, but it kind of seems like for them, the past, the present, and the future, like there's not really any distinction between them. Like it seemed like they perceive them simultaneously.
Yeah, it says he looked up and he seen like behind him, right?
Yeah, and he sees the other White Leg Warriors like following behind and in front. It's crazy. if at the end of the Aspect Emperor, when we finish and I go back and I reread this paragraph and it happens exactly as is described here, then I don't know.
There's older paragraphs that had revelation too. Older books even. In fact, the people you like,
they came true.
Confus said something that was super crazy that we'll discuss after the end of all these books.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So basically, I should once we finish, I should reread all the books so we can talk about all the hints and prophecies and foreshadowing.
Give it 10 years until you forget most of it.
Then reread it.
Except all the parts that still eat at you 10 years from now, and then you can reread it.
Right. Well, I'm already reading this book for the second time and within like 4 months, so. But I'm not any wiser because of that. I can tell you that with certainty.
I would say you sort of are. You said you find it more interesting than the first time you read it, so you're pulling something out of it this time.
Mhm.
I'm definitely having more questions. Like I'm asking myself a lot more like what the meaning of it is, or if what I'm reading is actually what seems to be true, if that's actually the truth. But yeah. I think doing it on audio also helps. Like it's just less tedious.
Hmm.
And now we kind of get a vision of Esmenet's enemies, right? To see the scope and the size. One of them thinks he's chosen by God too. Everyone's chosen by God lately, just to kill Kellis. Everyone thinks they're going to be the one killing Kellis.
But this one has Sisharum.
Yep, there's still a couple alive, apparently.
Yeah. I think my I was kind of sad to read about Fenial, I think that's his name, and his army of Ratax. Like when you think back to the Prince of Nothing and sort of the majesty of the Kianine Empire.
The grandioseness of their attire and their lives. Now he's
Yeah,
a
like
desert bandit.
yeah, like they were. I mean, especially in comparison to the Nanser Empire, they were the ones. They were sort of the rising empire, the rising power in the region, at the peak of their civilization, I guess, or getting there anyway. And now they're just like there are just so few of them left, and you look at what happened to Fenial, who was this like glorious warrior, if you remember from this Thousandfold Thought, maybe the warrior prophet, where we meet him for the first time. It's just sad.
What did he say? That the gods decided that they had gotten lazy and they needed to trim the fat, so he sent them into the desert.
Where they came from. Yeah, he does say that. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess you could say they became too complacent, too comfortable with their position. But still, I mean, like there was a. It's just a shame. Like I just feel I can't help but feeling sad that that's how they ended up, especially after everything they went through during the Crusades or the Holy War.
I don't know for sure, but I assume Kellis like appointed a new Fenial, right? Just to keep the conquered ones in line.
Yeah, I think his younger brother. I think Fenial's
Oh
younger
yeah, now
brother.
I remember that now.
Well, I don't know if he's the petty Raja, but he has some sort of a title. I
Well,
think he's marching with the Great Ordeal.
their grandiose culture is still alive. It's just been conquered. Now the old leader is just out on camels somewhere.
Yeah.
Wandering the desert.
Well,
Oh yeah, he
I
took
think
over two cities actually. I
was
forgot
there.
which two. Essenet thought he was gonna come for one of the cities, and then I think he went and took
That's right. Yeah.
Shigeki instead or something. Or that's the
Mhm.
one she sent people to, and he took the other one.
Right. I
He's
think.
outmaneuvering her.
Yeah, I think she assumed he was going to attack Nansiphon, which is the former capital of the Kianine Empire, or yeah, or the capital of the former Kianine Empire. Um, and he decided to attack Iothea instead. which is, I believe, the capital of Shigek. And also, I think that's the headquarters of the Yatwarian cult. I think that's where Sudma Nana Fairy. I think
There you
that's
go there.
where. Thank you. I think that's where she's headquartered. Like that's where the cult, where their temple is located.
So how much of this is coincidence and how much of it is revelation? We talk about the White Luck Warrior being able to see so much of the past. It like talked about his great 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 grandfather or grandmother giving birth to his great 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 grandfather, and just how time progresses maybe to these gods sort of. And then we like remembering Nair finding Kellis on Nair's dad's grave, and then I think what Akamian called a coincidence, but it seems like now Namara knows it's not a coincidence. You have like the skin spy there, and at the very end we find out they're tracking the captain, not Akamian. Akamian and Esmet are just like side things, but then the Synthi says we have to respect the old prophecies, or I forgot the way he described it. Basically, the dumb prophecies as well as the true prophecies, and I think that's referring to the judging eye, and not thinking that that was like a legit prophecy, but they have to respect it anyways. But
I have no idea what prophecies they were referring to.
But then she realizes that Akamian is just like a tool in all this too. Really, they're probably all tools. They're all supposed to have been here for thousands of years, maybe, or maybe not.
I did find it quite funny that Akamian immediately assumed that the skin spy was there because of him, like he was there to follow and spy on him. And then the skin spy is like, "Oh yeah, by the way, there's this wizard. I don't know why he's joined this expedition." Like I understand why a common would assume that, but I still thought it was funny. But yeah, I have no idea. Like they don't. Yeah, he wasn't there. He wasn't sent there to spy on a common, and we know he wasn't sent there to spy on Myanmar either. So he's there to spy on someone else. Well, we don't know who. Like I assume it's probably cleric or the captain.
But he wants the captain dead.
Yeah. So I guess that leaves the non-man. Or maybe one of the other skin eaters, but most of them are dead.
There was quite a bit of revelation there as far as the captain like talking to cleric when Mimara sneaks up, saying, "Oh, you kind of they remind you of someone." And then Akamian, when he's telling Mamara like why he's dangerous, it's because if he remembers you and loves you, then you're for sure gonna die. It's guaranteed you're dead. And then he says, "Mamara, that's the first human name I've remembered in a long time." That seems like fondness.
And she's like, "Shoot." Yeah, the relationship between the captain and cleric is fascinating, and I hope we get to learn more about the non-man and why he's joined the Skin Eaters and why why the captain keeps bringing him with them. I don't know. It's this and this whole thing about like with the memory and how like it seems like he doesn't remember almost anything. But yet still he's like extremely powerful sorcerer and warrior. But he's also just a rack of a person. I just find the non-man really fascinating.
And Akemian says he's even more powerful because he doesn't have like the memories attached, just the feelings, and the feelings are what's important for magic, as we learned with Kellis's dad's utter failure.
Well, it's one way of practicing magic, I guess. Yeah.
And I thought it was crazy how when Akemian was talking to Mimara about Cleric, he says that he's older than iron, he's older than human writing, older than the tusk. That's how old this guy is.
It's like, I mean, I can't even imagine like being around for so long. I mean, no wonder you forget things.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things. That's just a lot to remember. Even if your memory is somewhat functional.
This goes back to the prologue in the very first series when the non-man says, "You killed my book," right? Because he has no memory anymore, so they keep the person around to remind them, at least for that small time frame, that they're there.
But it's interesting that a strength can do that for that, like that they can use a human to do it. I guess that makes sense, but to use a strength, that seems a bit odd, especially because they don't seem to have a very friend relationship, the non-men and the strength.
Then we see the thing called Soma a couple more times.
Yeah, and he tells Mimara that she's pregnant.
Yeah, there's 3 possibilities and 2 of them are wrong. So I think we know who's who the dad is. That was really, yeah.
Yeah, especially after they talk about how like fatherly his Akamian's relationship to Mimara has become. Please don't.
He's physically the dad, but mentally and spiritually the grandfather.
That's even worse. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's better. I don't know. It's not good.
It's a bad situation.
In all fairness, it was Mimara who seduced him, right?
I think it came in should know better. Yeah.
He's been stuck in a tower for like 20 years.
It takes 2 people.
He should have known better.
He's a wizard. Should know better. And there's a quote about the judging eye is the eye of the unborn.
It all makes sense now. I mean, they talked about it we talked about it last week, that all the people who've been known to have the judging eye were pregnant women. Mm-hmm. So I guess it makes sense that Mimara is also pregnant. But I mean, she does talk about having the judging eye even like since she was a baby or since she was very young. So
Akemian tells her that if you have the judging eye, you have a stillborn son or a stillborn kid. And the skin spy said, "Kill the captain if you want your kid to live." Those are contradictions.
I mean, if the captain kills her or gets her killed before she gives birth, well, I don't know. Maybe there are contradictions. I'm not sure.
And then we see most of the stone hags die now in varying ways. Some of them just beat to death, some of them just limping too slow and then just getting left behind.
Because they're not getting the Kiri. I don't
Weeping.
understand. Like, why do they bring them along if they don't give them the thing that keeps everyone else going?
Well, are they lucky? Maybe. We've learned a little bit more about this query and what it does, right? It, like, quickens your body and deadens your passion. I think it talks about Akemi and just watching them beat the guy's face into a pulp, and just like all of them just watching it, not even like having an expression except for Namara, who turns away. They're all just kind of emotionally dead inside. He says he cares even less about all the skin eaters, but he seems to care more about Namara.
Yeah.
What kind of drug is this? Meth? That's what Hitler used to march a long distance.
Interesting. Yeah, not my area of expertise, I'll admit. But they do seem to have like turned it into almost like a religious ceremony where they have the declaring, handing out the Kiri.
The holy dispensation.
Right.
And he just rambles like a madman. He can't ever talk about the name of a city or the name of a person, but he can just describe all the destruction and chaos that's happened. And Acadian can't figure out exactly which destruction and chaos he's talking about, because that's just mankind for thousands of years.
Yeah, being there and watching them marching, I think it would be quite a bizarre experience. Like this whole expedition just seems to be getting crazier and weirder every chapter.
I feel like once they got out of the cave, they had 2,000 miles to Ishawal. So I'm glad some weeks have passed.
Yeah, and I think
they've
they
been
walked
traveling,
a lot.
like a fast distance, but it's 2,000 miles to Ishawal from the Black Falls. So
Yeah, I think even by car that would take like a week or two, maybe.
days.
Yeah, but they're still not very far. But I'm happy we're out of the forest yet already.
Maybe you won't have to hear about every single step. Maybe weeks will pass sometimes.
Yeah, and every tree and branch.
Yeah.
And Selma, I think, like falling out of a branch or like grabbing the one guy that was running away out of a branch, because the one guy like started calling him all crazy and ran off.
Oh, was that Soma? I didn't realize. But
Selma
it makes sense.
hates him a lot. He swears he's seen like a branch grabbing the guy. I assumed it was Selma.
Yeah, no, it's totally. I just didn't connect the two, but it makes total sense that it would be Soma.
Or when he ran like a dog or like an animal. And he met with the Scythes?
And the part that was crazy to me is him climbing to the top of the tree every night and screaming in a voice only a rat could hear until blood came out of his mouth. And that was nuts. I guess it got the Synthes' attention though, because they met up finally.
Yeah, and that's where we learn that they weren't. The consul wasn't even aware that a Kamian joined the expedition. And I think, I mean, they talk about a couple of other things, but I think that's the main takeaway, that they send so much to spy on someone else, someone who's not a Kamian or a Maimar.
Maimara talks about how the real Soma was probably left like at the camp that Akamian met them at. So maybe it could be Mamara that he's supposed to follow. He did protect her, right?
Mm-hmm. Did you see her?
Yeah, but I think he mentions that, like, it's I think he's informing the Synthes that Maimar is there, and the impression I got from that conversation is that they didn't expect her to make an appearance. Like, they were not expecting her to be there.
Or
I think.
Akamian, right?
Yeah. But I don't know, it makes me think back to the prologue where there is this mysterious person who visits the skin eaters and wants to talk to the captain. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
Remember it talking about Arax and Arang, the Ingorai?
Yeah.
I think maybe the last two living. They have like a head fused into their mouth, right? When they landed on the Ark, they didn't have a head fused into their mouth.
Right.
That's pretty crazy. They also couldn't talk to the non-men or the humans. So they
Because
like,
they didn't have a mouth.
Next time they seen him, they had a mouth.
Yeah. Whose mouth was that, I wonder?
Who knows?
He does tell him to continue tracking them to Sor. At the very least, they will take you home.
Yeah, and there's the question of, like, why, like, what is the consult's goal? Like, are there was it originally their plan to get to the library of Saglish or to Ishwal, or did that happen by accident? I don't know. And there's also another thing where Maimara, she uses the judging eye again. And I think we talked about it, like, last time. Like, what would happen if she saw herself? Like, if she saw her reflection with the judging eye? Well, we find out she's not damned. She's good, and she doesn't like the fact that she's good. But she also talks about how she originally thought that a Kamian was damned because he was the sorcerer, but now she's starting to think that maybe he is damned because he will lead the consult to Ishwal, which I thought was interesting. And it does support my theory that sorcerers are not damned because of the fact that they're sorcerers, but because of other things they do.
And even not all humans are damned, like all snakes and rabbits are.
Yeah,
or
we know
snakes aren't and rabbits are. Yeah, there we go.
We know at least one person who isn't damned, if the judging eye actually is or does what we think it does.
There's a lot of unreliable narration going on.
Yes.
And there as you talked about, there seem to be some true prophecies and false prophecies. But I mean, I'm not. How can you tell if a prophecy is true or false until the thing that's supposed to happen either happens or doesn't happen?
I don't know. You're Yatwer and you cast out a lot of nets and tell all of them they're going to be the one that kills Kellis. You tell the White Luck Warrior he's killing Kellis. You tell Sorwell that he's absolutely needs to kill Kellis.
Yeah, and Phenile and maybe a couple other people we haven't even met yet.
Yep. And then the Synthes just want to kill this person whose soul bounced to hell and just came back. The captain.
Right. Maybe. I don't know. Would they care? Like, why would they care if someone went to hell and then returned?
I don't know. Maybe it's just what he's going to do. Maybe it's what he's talking the non-men into doing. Who knows why the consult wants the captain dead or what the captain was doing in the first place. He doesn't seem like he needs to be a skin eater, though.
Yeah, it does seem like they have another a mission that the skin eaters are sort of just a pretense. But I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll find out sooner or later.
Unless that's one of the things we never find out.
Or we never find out.
Maybe never.
Yeah. But yeah, I generally my feelings are that we are getting more mysteries and questions than answers. Although we did get some answers, but also more questions with the answers. So
well, since the series started, we've all decided that there is for sure an outside and gods, right? And gods have pawns. All these pawns are in places. Maybe free will isn't as certain as sometimes it seems. Kellis seemed to take people's free will, but maybe free will is taken by the gods first, right? That's why Yatwer knew the White Luck Warrior was going to be the White Luck Warrior. Doesn't seem like there's much choice there.
yeah, no one seemed to ask him. That's for sure. No one asked Sorwheel if he wanted to be Yatwer's chosen one either. Well, Phenile seems more than happy to be the chosen one.
Yeah, he's the most proud of all of the chosen ones. He gloats that he can't be killed. White Luck Warrior's like mysterious and calm. I was going to say one other word, but I just can't yet.
So many questions. Well, is there anything else you guys can think of?
Well, we also learn that the captain is a very, very religious person and a follower of Callus, it seems. Like he kills one of the stone hags when they're trash talking Callus.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's interesting that someone who literally or allegedly has been to hell. Well, I guess maybe it makes sense. Maybe if you've gone to hell and back, maybe that would turn you religious. I don't know. I haven't met a person like that before. But it did come as a surprise to me that when I at least when I first read the book, that I just didn't think of him as someone who would be so religious, and that like who would be one of the Zarunyani and a strong believer. But that it seems that that's what he is.
So willing to cut anyone who just starts crying, right below the armpit. Weepers, no weepers on the slog.
No weepers in the slog.
No blasphemers on this. Like, he just, I mean, is it just me, or does he just make up the rules as they go? I mean, I think like when we started, I think it was just weepers and I don't know, maybe something else. And then it's been like 10, 20 other things that you're not supposed to do on the slog. That I think he's just making it up.
I know when they went to the black halls, all the rules got thrown out, and then when he came out, the first rule got obeyed again, and Sarl thought that it was a good sign. We have the rules again.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are a couple of like small things, but I don't think there's much point in talking about them.
So is water going to climb the prow of the great ordeal, like the gods are saying?
Well, not if Sorwheel and company can ride fast enough. At least that would be my guess.
I hope they get punished for not bringing any meat back. They're supposed to be out hunting for them.
I mean, there was a lot of meat.
It was like full of flies and not too good.
There's maybe just one little thing that I thought was interesting about the Kisharim that's been riding with Fanile. Like they talk, like Fanile talks about how the Kisharim, I think his name is Mappa. He was sent to him by God, and then the diplomat, he asks Fanile, like, what does Meppa, the sorcerer, think about all this? And I think Fanile replies something like he doesn't know who he is. I don't know if it means like he's forgotten, or that he doesn't know, if he's not sure if he was sent to Fanile by God. But I don't know. It just made me wonder if there is something more to this. Like, is this just some random Kisharim that we never met before, or is this someone we're supposed to know from Prince of Nothing? That's one thing that caught my attention.
So many things going on.
I mostly remember like Malawebai saying he couldn't even see the saffron robe until he like took off his blindfold and saw that he didn't have eyes, and he's like, "Oh man, that's a dusty yellow robe." And then he realized that what he thought was I think he said a black tongue was actually the snake.
Yeah, he's not very perceptive. What's his name? Mebwabi, or Malawabi. Oh. I'm sorry about butchering the poor man's name.
I'm sure that's all we've done all series. I'm sure that's all anyone does who reads any of these books.
I know I have. So, so we finished with we're on chapter 7 now. But it looks like if we do 6, 7, 8.
Oh, I think we've already read 6.
Oh,
right?
I'm sorry. 7.
7 to 9.
7 to 9. Yeah, it looks like chapter 8 is really long. It's like 50 pages long.
Well,
No, I
hopefully
think
it's
7 through 9 sounds reasonable.
Through 9?
Yeah, it's about
30 more
100
pages.
and it's like about 110, 120 pages in my edition. The 3 chapters together. But I mean, if you prefer to read less, I'm also fine with that.
No, it's mostly up to you guys, so I'm good with whatever.
So we'll get through 9 and end up on page 3 of something. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 316 is,
Okay.
and it's where my
The
what
hardcover and
chapter?
the
Oh, you have the
softcover have
hardcover.
this. They have the same pages, so that's
Oh,
nice.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Interesting.
Well, cool. Well, interesting few chapters, I thought. So, good stuff. So, Katerina, if people want to contact you and tell you how wrong you are about Saban, where can they contact you?
It's pointless. I don't reply to any messages. No, you can contact me on the Patreon forum. I'm also on Instagram. I also try to read the comments below the YouTube videos. So you'll find me there.
And Daniel?
Look up and scream into the void like Selma did, and I'll hear you. Not in a human voice, though.
He will appear.
The rats or Daniel will appear.
Yes. But you never know what you're going to get, though. So it might not be Daniel who appears. It might be something else that flies. So, cool, everybody. Well, we will see you next week for 7 through 9. I'm sure it'll be lots of fun. See everyone next week.